Hey guys, it's Chelsea from The Financial Diet, and this week's video is sponsored by Haven Life Insurance Agency. And this week, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, and by favorite subjects, I mean least favorite subjects, and that is the things that we put off for months or even sometimes years at a time because they kind of fill us with anxiety, or we don't know how to do them, or they feel stressful, or like they'll take a ton of time, only often to end up doing these things and realizing they take us a couple of minutes and have provided us an enormous amount of relief. At any given time in my life, I have like 7 of these different things that I'm juggling, putting off for different reasons, trying not to think about all that. And frankly, for me, one of the worst parts about having generalized anxiety disorder, which normally for me is rather livable, aside from the insomnia stuff, is my uncanny ability to take something that should be small and build it up to something absolutely enormous in my mind. And again, especially when this comes to financial stuff where acting early and being proactive can save you a ton of money, it has cost me literally thousands of dollars in the past. But you don't have to have clinical anxiety to experience the feeling of just putting something off only to realize it wasn't that big, bad, scary thing. So today I wanted to talk about the things in your life that you've probably been putting off, but which you can actually complete today by the end of this day in 20 minutes or less. So without further ado, here are 8 of those things you've been putting off that you can do in 20 minutes or less. Number 1 is setting up a retirement account. Unfortunately, and maybe it's no surprise, but Americans are pretty behind when it comes to retirement savings, which is especially sad when you consider that the earlier you start, the more of an advantage you have because of that wonderful thing called compounding interest, as well as the investment horizon, or the length of time you have to let that investment grow. As the American workforce turns away from pension plans, the onus is increasingly on workers to secure their own retirements. The fact is, though, relatively few succeed. According to TheStreet.com, in 2019, a typical couple in the 56 to 61 age bracket without any retirement accounts had just $17,000 in savings. For many of us, that's not enough to live for a year, let alone an entire retirement. Now, let me be clear that I'm not here to shame people who simply don't have the resources to be putting away for retirement. That's a reality for many Americans. And if that's your case, then you should not feel further guilt about not being on track with your retirement savings. But speaking specifically to the people who could be putting a little bit away every month toward their retirement accounts, but just haven't been doing it because they don't understand it, or it stresses them out, or they feel like it's like they'd rather spend the money on other things, which I do understand on a human level, but come on, grow up. Those people, and I used to be one of them, need to really confront exactly what they're doing and how they're shooting themselves in the foot. For example, if you currently have access to a 401k plan through your employer, you should be utilizing it, particularly if there's an employer match. And you can ask someone in your HR department to walk you through the options. And if you don't have a retirement account through your employer, you can set up one as an individual. There are several options like a traditional or Roth IRA or an individual 401k, and we'll link you to some of the options in the description. And it's especially important to remember that if you're doing this on your own, just because you're putting your money in an IRA does not mean it's automatically invested. The account holds your investments, but depending on how it's set up, it may or may not be doing the investing for you. We'll link you to a great primer from our friend Amanda Holden right here on TFD's channel that goes through the different options you have for making sure that your investments are actually being invested. And if you're a total newbie to this, which likely you are if you're avoiding the idea of setting up a retirement account, you might want to consider something like a robo-advisor. They automate the investing for you, but be sure to do your research to make sure you're getting the right robo-investor for you, because some of them can charge pretty high fees. Again, there are a lot of ways to get into retirement saving and specifically investing for retirement. And although it's one of those things that feels kind of boring or annoying, especially with all of the automated options out there like robo-advising, it is easier than ever to get started saving for retirement in literally a matter of minutes and with literally a few dollars. The most difficult part with many of these things is just taking that first initial step. After, you can easily automate your contributions or simply check it every so often and throw a few more dollars in there. You can even work with apps which will roll over spare change into investment accounts, but just taking those first few minutes to set it up can be half the battle. Number 2 is getting term life insurance. One of the most important decisions that you'll make in your financial life is getting life insurance. Should something happen to you before your time, a term life insurance policy payout can help provide your loved one, your spouse, your dependents with the money that they'll need to keep paying things like mortgages and day-to-day living costs. It is a hugely important part of taking care of your loved ones. And if you or your partner were to pass away unexpectedly, that means that you will not be leaving your partner with a huge financial burden on top of the emotional one. And with how efficient it can be to apply for term life insurance coverage, there is literally no reason to keep putting it off. Haven Life is an innovative startup backed and wholly owned by MassMutual that has modernized the process of buying dependable term life insurance. Their easy online application process can give you a coverage decision in as little as 20 minutes. Plus, their rates are super affordable. A 30-year, $500,000 Haven term life policy issued by MassMutual for a healthy 30-year-old woman is only about $27 a month. Click the link in our description to get your term life insurance quote and apply online. Getting life insurance is a responsible, loving decision, and the earlier in life you get it, the more affordable it will be. Number 3 is switching to a bank with lower fees. People on average stick with the same checking account for about 14 years. And while there can be benefits to continued loyalty, when it comes to your money, and especially your savings, you should constantly be thinking about how you can put that money better to work. And if you're anything like me, you probably picked your original bank because of its proximity to where you were living at the time, which may years later have zero relevance to your day-to-day life. And when it comes to fees, there are tons to watch out for. Things like overdraft protection fees, which are typically around $35 for overdrawing your account, monthly maintenance fees, which certain accounts will charge you simply for keeping your money in them unless you meet certain criteria like a large minimum balance. Yes, it's often more expensive to have less money in your account. Paper statement fees. Some banks will charge you around $2 to $3 for getting a paper statement. Account closure fees. Some banks will charge around $25 if you close your account soon after opening it, typically within a 3 or 6 month window. Inactivity fees. If you don't have any activity in your account for 1 or 2 years, you may get hit with a $50 fee or more. Card replacement fees, like if you lose your debit card, you may pay anywhere from $7 to $25 or more to get a new one. And return to item fees, which typically get charged if you don't have enough money in your account to cover a check you wrote, usually around $35. It's generally difficult to find a bank account that doesn't charge any fees whatsoever, but they can vary wildly from bank to bank, so making sure that you're not getting stuck with a bunch of unnecessary ones can be a huge part in saving those little costs here and there, which can easily add up. Number 4, setting recurring dentist appointments. That's right, guys, we're talking about the dentist now. According to a study from the American Dental Association, 42% of Americans said they don't go to the dentist as often as they would like to. And one visit to the dentist every year should be considered the absolute minimum, while every 6 months is generally preferable. And I'm one of those people who, despite having insurance that covered my regular dental visits, put off going to the dentist for 3 years. Yikes. Listen, this is a circle of trust here. I'm being honest. But if your insurance covers dental, there is no reason to not be setting up a recurring appointment every 6 months, which proudly now I do. And yes, that first trip back to the dentist was a little fraught, and she was like, honey, those teeth have seen better days. And I was like, I know, but don't shame me because that's just gonna further reinforce the cycle of anxiety and make sure I never come again. Also, funny anecdote here, I got a cavity. It was my first cavity I'd ever gotten. I was very upset. I was like 30, I guess I was 30 years old, and I was like, I made it to 30 without getting a cavity and got a cavity, but I deserved it. Anyway, one of them was like pretty deep, and so I got a double shot of Novocaine in my cheek right here, and I had gotten a single shot of Novocaine before, and it wasn't really that impactful on me. Like, I don't know, I just kind of absorbed it well, and it didn't really affect my ability to use my mouth, so I was like, oh, no problem, like double shot's fine. And I had a dinner out with people that night, like an hour after my dental appointment. So she puts the filling in, I go to the bathroom to like, wipe up my face and everything and get ready to go out. My like entire half of my face was completely drooping open and I had no control over it, but I couldn't cancel on this dinner. So I go to the dinner. I literally was trying to take a sip of water and it would just run out of the side of my mouth. I bit my cheek like 5 times trying to take like 2 bites of food. It was a nightmare, but suffice it to say, I could have avoided all of that, all of it, if I had been more diligent about going to the dentist up front. But what about if you don't have insurance to cover dental appointments? We know it can be pricey to go to those regular appointments, so check out your state's dental association to check for low-cost options. Or look at dental schools in your area, where you can typically get much more affordable care from dental students. And don't worry, they are always supervised by a licensed dentist or dental hygienist. You can find information on both of these options at the American Dental Association's website, which we'll link you to below. And as a hot tip, if you are someone who is really in the business of putting off those pesky dental, medical, etc. appointments and want to hold yourself accountable, either find an accountability buddy with whom you can hold each other to your promises to yourself to go to those appointments, or, and you can also do this in tandem with the buddy, pick out a fun thing to do for yourself, a little gift to buy for yourself, or a special dinner to eat, or just kind of like a treat yourself moment at home that you only get to do when you've made and kept the appointment. It's totally fine to incentivize yourself like a 10-year-old. Number 5 is updating your resume. If our current situation has taught us anything, it's that job security, to a large extent, is a bit of an illusion. We can never really predict what's going to happen with our economy or with our particular industry, and even though we may give so much to our companies, we can never ensure that that loyalty will be returned to us. Sorry to be a bummer. But this is why it is so crucial to keep your resume always up to date. And remember that when it comes down to it, if your company decides that it can't afford to employ you anymore, it will have no problem drawing a line under your name and striking your employment. So there is absolutely no shame in always being prepared with an up-to-date personal website, resume, profiles on places like LinkedIn, etc. When it comes to corporate America, those hoes aren't loyal to you. You don't need to be loyal to those hoes. And the more up-to-date everything is, the more you will be ready to go if and when you ever get bad news about your current employment. And remember that your resume does not need to be overly wordy. According to CareerBuilder, 40% of hiring managers spend less than 1 minute reviewing a resume, and 25% spend less than 30 seconds. So if part of the reason you were avoiding updating your resume or your professional website was because you felt like it would be a huge investment of your time, it's not. You just need to make sure a few key things are updated, and this can take a few minutes. Any good resume should highlight specific numbers, avoid trite or overused buzzwords, and only list relevant job experiences for the types of positions you're applying for. And we'll link you to a list of common resume mistakes to avoid. Taking a few minutes to update every couple of months could be the difference between getting noticed by a potential employer or being ready if something were to happen to your current job and feeling totally unprepared. Number 6 is starting a sustainable exercise routine. Sadly, but again, not surprisingly, not exercising at all is an extremely common default in America. According to Harvard Medical School, we have to eat, so following nutritional advice is a matter of making choices, like swap out saturated fats for healthy oils or eat whole grains instead of refined carbohydrates. But in this day and age, many, perhaps most, people don't need to be physically active unless they choose to be. And most evidence suggests that the choice of the kind of activity is far less important than whether to be active at all. About half of adult Americans don't meet one of the most oft-cited guidelines, which calls for at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity activity, such as a fast walking pace, most days of the week. And you can accumulate that total in bouts of 10 to 15 minutes. About a quarter of American adults say they devote none of their free time to active pursuits. So what is one of the easiest ways to ensure that you are making some kind of exercise? And again, important to remember that it doesn't really matter with what you start a part of your life. Commit to only doing a very, very small amount of it every day. In fact, when using something like an activity or habit tracker, or even just a regular pen and paper journal, you can make the definition for got some exercise in today as easy to meet as you want. And just meeting it and getting that consistent little tiny bit of activity in every day is better than feeling like you might as well not even try if you're not going to become an athletic person. For example, you can say a quick walk around the block, 10 minutes of exercises on a yoga mat in your living room, doing really active chores around your house, even going grocery shopping. All of these things can be your activity for the day where you get the gold star and you get to look back and say, hey, I exercised 5 days in a row. It it wasn't so hard. And not only will that consistency and your ability to follow through give you a lot more confidence to keep going in the future, becoming more active is a snowball effect. You get more energy from being more active. You sleep better from exerting more energy during the day. And therefore, each new day, it becomes easier to get a little more exercise. But starting as small and as easy as you possibly can ensures that you will get that ball rolling. Number 7 is making a will. According to a study from Merrill Lynch, nearly half of Americans over the age of 55 still don't have a will. And if you're younger than that, you may be thinking, well, why would I need one? But not to be morbid here, but there is always a chance that something could happen to you prematurely. And if you haven't established what you want to happen, should anything happen to you, a lot of that will be left up to a judge or state officials. And here are several reasons why you should definitely have a will. You can be clear about who gets your assets. You can decide who gets what and how much. You can keep your assets out of the hands of people you don't want to have them, like an estranged relative. You can identify who should care for your children. Without a will, the courts will decide. Your heirs will have a faster and easier time getting access to your assets. You can plan to save your estate money on taxes. You can also give gifts and charitable donations, which can help offset the estate tax. As an added bonus, eligible Haven Life customers can create a legal will free of charge through Haven Life Plus. Plus is a rider, an insurance word for benefit, included with your term life insurance that gives you access to no-cost services that most of us need. Plus, you can get a little fun with your will. Talk about what kind of sweet, kick-ass funeral you want. Talk about what outfit you want to be wearing if you're being buried or viewed. Talk about colors people aren't allowed to wear. Go crazy. I love a theme party. It's like your last good theme party. Lastly, and most importantly for people who rent instead of own, stop putting off renter's insurance. First of all, it is seriously super affordable, with most plans being around $15 a month. But it also protects you against a lot of stuff, like losses to your personal property, including clothes, jewelry, luggage, computers, furniture, and electronics. It covers everything from theft and vandalism to damage from weather or appliance malfunctions. Additionally, most renters' insurance plans offer liability insurance, which could cover you if something happens to someone in your apartment. You're not liable for it. Plus, some landlords actually require you to have renter's insurance, like mine, so if you don't have it, you might actually be in breach of your lease, which could set you up for tons of problems. Lastly, many renters' insurance companies allow you to apply quickly and easily online in a matter of minutes, so between that and how inexpensive it is and how much it covers you, there's really no reason not to. Remember that when it comes to some of these big, scary things, most of the battle is just working up the courage to actually click a few buttons or pick up the phone and do it. The rest is kind of easy. And if one of the things that you've been putting off is getting life insurance, which you should definitely have, I highly recommend you check out Haven Life at the link in our description. As always, guys, thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and to come back every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday for new and awesome videos. Goodbye!